silence. It's supposed to be powerful, right? A tool of self-respect, a strategy to create space and allow her to reflect, miss you, or even regret her actions. You've heard it before. Pull back, go quiet, and she'll come running. But what happens when your silence is met with nothing? No reaction, no curiosity, no change. It feels like you're shouting into the void, and instead of making her notice, it feels like you've just faded further into the background. If you've been here, feeling frustrated, confused, and wondering why the silence that was supposed to empower you is only making things worse, then you're not alone. The truth is, silence can be a powerful tool, but only when used in the right way and in the right context. And if it's not working for you, it might be time to take a closer look at why that's happening and what to do next. In this video, we're breaking it all down. Why your silence might not be having the impact you expected, the mistakes you could be making, and, most importantly, the actionable steps you need to take to turn the situation around and regain your influence. Let's begin. Number 1. Your energy still chases her. It's not just about cutting off communication, it's about where your energy is directed. If your thoughts, emotions, and actions are still orbiting around her, even in silence, she can feel it. You might think you're being silent, but your energy tells another story. Picture this. You stop texting, calling, or reaching out, but you're still scrolling through her social media, analyzing her every move, wondering who she's with or what she's doing. That invisible tether still connects you to her. And believe it or not, people pick up on that. Silence that's not paired with genuine detachment is like trying to put out a fire while still pouring gasoline nearby. It doesn't work. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic thinkers, often reminded himself not to waste time or energy on things outside his control. Now, think about your situation. Is she in your control? Is her attention or validation something you can truly command? Of course not. What you can control is where your energy goes. Are you focusing on rebuilding yourself, your goals, and your peace of mind? Or are you letting her still dominate your thoughts, even in your silence? True silence isn't just about not speaking or not texting, it's about shifting your focus. When you reclaim your energy, when you redirect it toward becoming a stronger, better version of yourself, that's when silence becomes powerful. Let me give you an example. Imagine a man who decides to walk away from a relationship. If he spends his days improving his health, learning new skills, and engaging with his passions, his energy changes. He's no longer chasing, he's building. His silence now carries weight because it's backed by true self-control and inner strength. That's the kind of silence she notices, not the kind that comes from playing games or waiting for a reaction. Ask yourself this: where is your energy going right now? If it's still tied to her, it's time to cut that cord. Not out of bitterness, but out of respect for your own peace. The moment you start living for yourself again, your silence takes on a different meaning. It becomes a symbol of your growth, not a tactic to win her back. Take it from the Stoics. The key to mastering life and relationships is mastering yourself first. Let her feel your absence, not just through silence, but through the strength and focus that comes when your energy is no longer chasing her. That's how you create an impact. Number 2, she doesn't see your value yet. If your silence feels like nothing to her, it's because your presence didn't leave a lasting impression. This isn't meant to tear you down. It's an opportunity for growth. You see, in Stoicism, One of the key teachings is to focus on what's within your control. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." The question isn't why she doesn't care about your silence. The question is, have you cultivated yourself to be someone worth missing? Imagine a man who's constantly seeking validation, whether it's through over-messaging, always trying to impress, or constantly apologizing for who he is. When that man decides to go silent, it's not silence that she notices. It's relief. There's no sense of loss, because he didn't bring value that made her pause and appreciate his presence in the first place. Now, contrast that with a man who's grounded, who knows his worth, and who doesn't need someone else to validate his existence. His silence carries weight. It's not a tactic or a game. It's a reflection of his understanding that he doesn't need to chase after someone who doesn't see his value. That's a man who has cultivated inner strength. His actions, or lack of them, naturally demand respect. Stoicism teaches us that our worth doesn't come from what others think. It comes from what we think of ourselves. Have you done the work to build a life you're proud of? Are you taking care of your body, your mind, your passions? Are you building relationships that uplift you, not ones that drain you? Because when you focus on becoming the best version of yourself, you stop worrying about whether she notices your silence. And ironically, that's when people start to notice. So, if your silence isn't impacting her, take it as a signal, not to sulk or feel bitter, but to rise above it. Use it as a call to action, to improve yourself, not for her, but for you. Build a life so rich and full that your presence becomes a privilege and your absence a void. Remember, as Epictetus said, wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. When you want less from others and more from yourself, you start to radiate the kind of energy that can't be ignored. Focus on building your value, not to make her miss you, but to make yourself unshakable. And if she doesn't notice, trust me, someone who recognizes your worth will. Your silence will speak volumes when it reflects a life well lived, a man who doesn't need to be noticed to feel worthy. That's when your silence will have impact, not because you wanted it to, but because you've become the kind of person people can't help but notice. What do you think about this idea of cultivating inner strength and becoming someone whose silence speaks volumes? Have you ever experienced a moment where you realized your focus needed to shift inward rather than outward? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Or, if this resonates with you, just type, "My silence has value," to affirm your journey toward self-worth and growth. Let's keep the conversation going. Number 3, you're playing her game, not yours. Here's a tough pill to swallow. If your silence is just a strategy to make her react, to make her miss you, or to manipulate her into coming back, you're not actually in control. You're still playing her game, even if it feels like you're doing something bold or strategic. Every time you wonder, will she notice I'm gone? Or, why hasn't she reached out yet? You're giving her all the power. She's not winning because she's ignoring you. She's winning because you've tied your sense of peace and value to her response. And that's not a position of strength. That's a trap. If your silence is rooted in expectation, it will always fail. Why? Because you're still clinging to the outcome. You're waiting for her to text back, to notice your absence, to suddenly realize she made a mistake. And if she doesn't, you spiral. You start questioning your worth or doubling down on manipulative tactics, which only pushes her further away. This is not the energy of someone in control. This is the energy of someone who's desperate to win a game they never needed to play in the first place. Let's flip the script. What if silence wasn't about her at all? What if it was about you? Think about it. Silence can be one of the most powerful tools, but only when it comes from a place of self-respect. Instead of using it to manipulate, use it to rebuild. Stop asking, "Is she thinking about me?" and start asking, "What do I need to do for myself right now?" True silence means putting the phone down. It means letting go of the need for updates, for signs, for anything from her. It means redirecting that energy back into your own life. Hit the gym. Pick up a book you've been meaning to read. Spend time with people who make you feel good about yourself. Silence isn't passive, it's active. It's a choice to focus on yourself, not on her. Here's the irony. When you truly stop caring about her reaction, that's often when she starts noticing. Why? Because true detachment is rare and powerful. It's not about pretending not to care, it's about genuinely letting go. People are drawn to those who are at peace with themselves, who don't chase, and who don't need validation to feel whole. If your silence isn't having the impact you hoped for, it's because you're still tied to the outcome. You're still playing her game. But the moment you decide to play your own game, to stop reacting, to stop waiting, to stop hoping, is the moment everything shifts. You reclaim your power. You stop trying to control her, and you start controlling what really matters: your own growth, your own happiness, your own life. And when you do that, you stop needing her reaction entirely. That's real freedom. That's real strength. And that's when you truly win. Not her game, but your own. Number 4. She knows you'll break eventually. Consistency is everything. If your silence is just a temporary tactic or something you've tried before but couldn't sustain, why would she take it seriously? She's seen this pattern. She knows that sooner or later you'll text, call, or try to reconnect. And when that happens, the silence you worked so hard to maintain loses all its meaning. It becomes noise, predictable, empty noise. A true Stoic isn't someone who merely acts calm or collected on the outside. They embody calmness and resolve from within. They don't rely on temporary acts or emotional manipulation. Instead, they are anchored by their principles, grounded by their inner strength. Ask yourself, are you silent because you genuinely value your peace, your growth, and your dignity? Or are you simply waiting for her to notice and respond? If it's the latter, she'll see through it. People can sense when your actions are driven by desperation or a hidden agenda. That's why your silence feels hollow to her. It's not built on a foundation of authenticity. Consider this. A man decides to stop chasing someone who's been pulling away. At first, he feels restless, checking his phone constantly, wondering if she'll notice his absence. But as days turn into weeks, he starts to shift his focus. He picks up a book he's been meaning to read, reconnects with friends, starts working out again, or learns a new skill. His silence is no longer about her, it's about him. And in doing so, he transforms. When your silence stems from a genuine commitment to yourself, it becomes powerful. It's not about punishing someone or playing games. It's about choosing to protect your peace, value your time, and embrace the control you have over your own life. This is what the Stoics meant when they said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. But if you waver, if you let emotions dictate your actions and break your silence prematurely, it sends a message. You're not in control. She knows you'll eventually give in, and that makes your silence ineffective. So, how do you change this? Start by shifting the focus back to yourself. Stop waiting for her reaction and start building a life so fulfilling that her response, or lack of it, no longer defines your worth. When you do this, your silence will carry weight. It will no longer be a tactic, but a reflection of your strength. And strength, my friend, is what truly speaks volumes. Be consistent, be patient, and most importantly, be true to yourself. That's the kind of silence that commands respect. If this resonates with you, take a moment to reflect. How do you approach silence in your life? Is it a tool for self-growth, or does it come with strings attached, hoping for a specific reaction? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective might inspire someone else. Or, if you're short on words, just type, "True silence is strength," to let us know you're committed to cultivating inner resolve. We'd love to hear from you. Number 5. You haven't shifted your focus yet. Silence without action is like a ship without a destination. It doesn't go anywhere, and it certainly doesn't make waves. Here's the hard truth. If you're not redirecting your energy during this period, your silence becomes meaningless. It's just time passing by, and she's likely not even noticing because nothing about the dynamic has shifted. Think about it this way. Silence has power only when paired with purpose. If all you're doing is sitting around, ruminating on what went wrong, or hoping she'll suddenly realize your worth, then your silence is wasted. Silence without self-improvement is just a void. It lacks the weight to create any lasting impression. The question is, are you using this silence wisely, or are you letting it slip through your fingers? The Stoics believed in making obstacles work for you. If your silence isn't affecting her, it's because you haven't shifted your focus to the one thing you can control: yourself. This isn't the time to sit idly and hope she notices your absence. It's the time to turn inward, to grow, to evolve. The obstacle here, her distance, her lack of reaction, isn't the enemy. It's the opportunity, but only if you choose to see it that way. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine two people going through the same situation. They both decide to go silent after a breakup or a fight. The first guy spends his days glued to his phone, scrolling through her posts, rereading old messages, and replaying memories. He's stuck in the past, living in a loop that only he can see. The second guy, on the other hand, takes that silence as a chance to rebuild himself. He hits the gym consistently, picks up that hobby he always talked about but never started, and even begins meditating to find inner peace. Over time, he starts to radiate a quiet confidence, a self-assuredness that isn't tied to her. Which one do you think she's more likely to notice? Or, better yet, miss? The guy who's stuck, or the guy who's moving forward? Here's the thing. People are naturally drawn to growth. When you're working on yourself, it's magnetic. It sends a silent yet powerful message. I value myself enough to keep improving, with or without your attention. And that's when your silence begins to have an impact. Not because you're trying to manipulate her or play games, but because you've shifted your focus from her to building a life that feels fulfilling on its own. That shift in energy is what makes silence work. It's not the absence of noise, it's the presence of purpose. And here's the irony. When you truly commit to this path, you'll find that her reaction matters less and less. You'll be so focused on your own growth that whether or not she notices will feel secondary. And that's exactly when your silence starts to have power, when it's not about her anymore, when you've built a version of yourself that stands tall, grounded, and complete, regardless of her presence. That's what real strength looks like. Number 6. She feels no sense of loss. Silence is powerful only when it creates a void, a sense of absence that is deeply felt. If your silence doesn't move her, it's a sign that something is missing, not just in your dynamic, but perhaps in how you've positioned yourself in her life. Think about it. Silence only stings when there's something to miss, something valuable that once filled the space. If she doesn't feel that void, it's not necessarily because she's indifferent or cold-hearted. It might be because you haven't left a strong enough impression, an impression of who you are, what you bring to the table, and the values you live by. Stoicism, an ancient philosophy rooted in developing character and inner strength, gives us some perspective here. It reminds us that we should focus less on controlling others and more on becoming the kind of person who naturally commands respect and admiration. Ask yourself, what is it about you that she's meant to miss? Is it your ability to listen without judgment? Your calm, steady presence in difficult times? Or perhaps your unique way of making her feel understood and safe? If none of these things stand out, your silence might feel more like a passing breeze than the sudden absence of warmth on a cold day. Take a moment to reflect on the kind of presence you've built in her life. Think of someone who has left a lasting impression on you. Maybe it was a mentor, a close friend, or even a past relationship. Their absence probably didn't go unnoticed because they brought something irreplaceable, a depth of character, a consistency, a certain energy that lingered even when they weren't physically there. That's the essence of what you need to cultivate. Silence, when used correctly, is not about manipulation. It's about creating space for someone to realize what they value in you. But here's the Stoic twist. You can't force someone to feel your absence. What you can do is work on being someone who deserves to be missed. Focus on your actions, your values, and how you show up, not just for her, but in life as a whole. A man grounded in his principles, steady in his emotions, and confident in his path is someone whose presence is felt even in his silence. Imagine two scenarios. In one, a man disappears into silence, but his absence barely registers because he was inconsistent, untrustworthy, or simply unremarkable. In the other, a man who was reliable, self-assured, and thoughtful steps back. The second man leaves a noticeable gap, not because he demands attention, but because his authenticity and impact linger like the scent of a favorite perfume long after it's gone. So, if your silence currently has no impact, it's not the end of the road. It's a signpost pointing you toward growth. Embrace the Stoic idea of controlling what's within your power, your thoughts, actions, and the way you carry yourself. Be someone who radiates value without needing to shout about it. Then, whether your silence speaks volumes or not, you'll know you've done your part to become a man of depth, character, and quiet strength. If you've made it this far, you're already demonstrating the mindset of someone seeking deeper growth and understanding. And that's the first step toward embodying the kind of presence we've been discussing. Now, I'd love to hear from you. What stood out to you the most in this message? What resonated with your own experiences? Share your thoughts in the comments below, or if you're not sure what to say, simply type, "I'm building my quiet strength." Your insights and reflections could inspire others on their journey too. Number 7. She reads you like an open book. If she can predict your every move, your silence loses all its weight. It doesn't spark curiosity or make her wonder. Instead, it becomes just another step in a pattern she's already figured out. Think about it. If your actions are like an open book, where's the intrigue? Where's the space for her to reflect or feel your absence? Epictetus said, "We suffer not from events, but from our judgment about them." This means that the impact of your silence, or lack of it, depends on how you carry yourself, not just on the act of being silent. Are you truly calm, centered, and self-assured, or are you using silence as a tool to get a reaction? If your silence is predictable or feels like an attempt to manipulate, it will fall flat. Imagine this. You text her every morning like clockwork, and one day you decide to go silent. Initially, she might notice, but if she already knows you'll eventually cave and check in, your silence loses all its impact. Why? Because there's no real mystery, no shift in energy. You've trained her to expect your pattern, even when you think you're breaking it. Now, let's flip the script. Instead of using silence as a tactic, embody emotional neutrality. This isn't about shutting her out or playing games. It's about mastering yourself. Picture a calm sea, steady, unshaken by storms. When you reach that level of emotional control, your silence becomes a natural byproduct of your self-respect, not a deliberate strategy. That's what creates intrigue. She doesn't know what to expect because you're not reacting to her. You're grounded in your own presence. Let's say she pulls back or becomes distant. The instinct might be to respond by pulling away too, thinking that your silence will somehow teach her a lesson. But that's not what Stoicism teaches. A Stoic would remain calm and composed, not allowing her actions to dictate their peace of mind. This isn't about indifference. It's about maintaining your inner balance. By being unreadable in a calm and genuine way, you show that you're not playing into the emotional tug-of-war. Mystery isn't about manipulation. It's about self-control. When you can sit with your silence without expecting a reaction, that's when it becomes impactful. It's no longer a tool, but a reflection of your own growth. Instead of being predictable, you become intriguing, not because you're trying to be, but because you've stopped chasing validation. And that, my friend, is where the power truly lies. So, the next time you feel tempted to go silent just to make her miss you, ask yourself, is this silence a reflection of my calm strength, or am I hoping she notices? Because when you embody the first, that's when your silence speaks volumes. Number 8. You haven't communicated your standards. You see, silence isn't a replacement for boundaries. If you've never taken the time to communicate your standards or expectations in the relationship, your silence becomes meaningless. Imagine trying to enforce a law in a town where no one ever announced the rules. It wouldn't work. People need clarity to understand what you stand for and what you expect. The same applies to relationships. Silence only works as a reminder of your boundaries, not as a substitute for them. Suppose you're in a situation where someone has repeatedly crossed a line, but you've never explicitly said, "This is what I need," or "This is what I won't tolerate." Instead, you pull away silently, hoping they'll just get it. The problem? They don't know what they're supposed to get. Your silence doesn't carry the weight of a clearly communicated standard, so it's like shouting into the void. No one hears it. The Stoics valued clarity and purpose in every action. They believed that a person who knows their values and stands by them is unshakable. When you speak up to set your boundaries, you're acting with purpose. You're saying, "This is who I am, and this is what I stand for." That kind of clarity cuts through all the noise. It gives your silence power because it's rooted in something real. Without that foundation, silence is just silence. Think about it this way. Silence is a tool, not the whole strategy. If you've clearly communicated what matters to you, whether it's respect, loyalty, or honesty, then your silence sends a message when those boundaries are crossed. It's a signal that says, "I've spoken my truth, and now I'm letting my actions speak louder." But if you've never said anything in the first place, your silence can't reinforce something that doesn't exist. So, the next time you're tempted to pull back and let silence do the talking, ask yourself, have I communicated my standards? If the answer is no, then start there. Speak when it matters. Set your boundaries once, clearly and firmly. Then, let your actions follow. This doesn't mean you have to explain yourself repeatedly or overcompensate with words. It means being intentional, honest, and clear about what you expect and what you won't tolerate. The beauty of this approach is that it aligns with Stoic principles. It's not about being reactive or emotional. It's about being grounded in your values and unshaken by the actions of others. You don't need to argue or beg for respect. You simply show up, state your truth, and live it. Over time, this kind of clarity builds an unspoken power in your silence, because people know what it represents. Remember, silence without standards is just absence. But silence backed by clearly communicated boundaries? That's presence. It's confidence. It's the kind of stillness that demands respect without saying a word. So, if your silence isn't having the impact you want, maybe it's time to go back to the basics. Speak up, set your standards, and let your silence reflect the strength of your character. Now that you've had a moment to reflect on the power of communicating your standards, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever experienced a situation where silence alone didn't convey the message you intended? Or perhaps you've seen the difference it makes when clear boundaries are in place. Let's keep the conversation going in the comments. Feel free to share your insights or simply type "Silence with standards speaks volumes" to let me know this message resonates with you. Your perspective might be just what someone else needs to hear today. Number 9. Your silence lacks purpose. Think about it. Are you using this silence to truly reflect on yourself, to grow as a person, and to realign with your values? Or is your silence just a way of screaming into the void, hoping she'll notice? The difference lies in your intent. If you're merely retreating with the expectation that she'll chase after you, it comes across as passive and even manipulative. That's not strength, it's insecurity, and people sense that. The Stoics understood this deeply. They didn't waste time on empty gestures. Their actions were deliberate, guided by reason and a sense of purpose. If you're going silent, make it count. Use the time to improve yourself mentally, emotionally, and even physically. Reflect on what you truly want and need, not just from her, but from yourself and your life. Silence should be an opportunity for growth, not a tool for manipulation. Imagine two people go silent after a breakup. The first one simply waits, checks their phone obsessively, and counts the days, hoping for a message. Their silence is empty, filled with anxiety and impatience. The second person, however, uses this time to work on their fitness, reconnect with their hobbies, and explore their passions. They learn from the experience, build their emotional resilience, and emerge as a stronger, more grounded version of themselves. Who do you think carries more weight when they re-enter the room? Who do you think she'll notice more? It's the one who's become better, not the one who's just been waiting. Your silence should communicate something powerful. I am secure within myself. I am growing, regardless of who notices. That kind of presence speaks louder than words. It's a silence that doesn't demand her attention, but commands respect when it's eventually broken. And here's the Stoic insight. Your growth should never be for her in the first place. It's for you. When you start operating with that kind of mindset, you stop obsessing over her reaction. Whether she notices or not becomes secondary to the fact that you're becoming someone even you admire. So, let me ask you, what is your silence saying about you right now? If it feels empty, it's time to shift your focus. Turn inward, reflect, and realign. Don't hope for her to notice. Instead, give yourself something worth noticing. That's how you turn passive silence into a purposeful transformation. That's how you reclaim your power. Number 10. Next steps. Build, don't wait. So, what should you do next? The answer is simple. Build. Focus on becoming the kind of man who thrives regardless of external acknowledgement. This isn't about her, this is about you. Start small if you have to, but start. Hit the gym. Not because you want her to see the physical changes, but because building your strength will remind you of your own resilience. Improve your finances, not to flaunt your success, but to create a life where you're independent and in control. Work on your mindset, because, as the Stoics understood, mastering your thoughts is the key to true freedom. A man who isn't a slave to his emotions is truly unstoppable. Picture a man who was deeply hurt by a woman he loved. She left without looking back, and for weeks he wallowed in pain, hoping she'd come around. One day, he realized he was wasting his life waiting for someone who wasn't thinking about him. So he decided to take control. He started running every morning to clear his head, not for her, but for himself. He signed up for classes to advance his career, not to prove anything, but to secure his future. He immersed himself in books, learning about philosophy and self-discipline, and discovered a calm within himself he didn't know existed. Months later, when she finally noticed his absence and reached out, he had changed so much that he didn't even recognize the man he'd been when he wanted her back. She noticed, but by then, it didn't matter anymore. That's the kind of transformation we're talking about here. The goal isn't to make her miss you. The goal is to grow into the kind of man who doesn't need her acknowledgement to feel whole. When you focus on your own growth, you realize that external validation, whether it comes from her or anyone else, has no real power over you. You become unshakable. Now you might be thinking, what if she never notices? What if this silence was a waste? The truth is, it doesn't matter. This is not about her. This is about taking all that energy you've been pouring into, wondering what she's thinking, and redirecting it into becoming the best version of yourself. When you do this, something remarkable happens. You stop measuring your worth by her reactions. And when you reach that point, everything shifts. She might notice, or she might not. But by then, you'll be too busy building your life to care. Remember, a Stoic man thrives in any circumstance. Your silence isn't a tactic to win her back. It's a moment for you to pause and focus on your path. Let her do what she will. Your energy should be spent building a life that feels meaningful and fulfilling to you. When you focus on growth, you don't just survive these moments of uncertainty, you transcend them. And when you do, the question won't be whether your silence has impacted her. The question will be whether you even want her in your life anymore. That's the power of taking control of your own story. So take this time and build, not for her, but for yourself. Trust me, the rewards will far exceed anything her attention could ever give you. In conclusion, the power of silence lies not in what it demands from others, but in what it builds within you. As we've explored today, if your silence isn't having the impact you hoped for, it's a signal to shift your focus inward. Take this moment as an opportunity for growth, self-reflection, and transformation. Remember, a Stoic man doesn't measure his worth by external validation. He thrives by mastering himself and embracing his inner strength. The lesson here is simple. Don't wait for her to notice. Build a life that commands respect, whether or not she sees it. When your silence is grounded in purpose, authenticity, and self-respect, it speaks louder than any words ever could. If this message resonated with you, let me know in the comments below. Share your thoughts. What's one step you'll take today to refocus your energy on your own growth? I'd love to hear your perspective. Don't forget to like this video, as it helps others discover these insights, and share it with anyone you think might benefit. Lastly, check out the recommended videos on screen to dive deeper into mastering your mindset and relationships. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Keep growing, keep building, and stay grounded.